What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Moneyline Miller, alongside me, the best college football analyst, Ray Greyfox. What is up, Ray? How we doing today?
Couldn't be better, Dan. Had a big Thursday night here in Blacksburg. The Hokies played host to the Boston College Eagles. We took the Fox family for the ball game. It was very exciting. We laced in a little BT minus 4.5 first half, courtesy of the Fax man. Dropped that one on me right before game time, so I rode it out. Can't go to a game without a little action on it. But we had a fantastic night. The weather's good. We're going with Starling today from the Fox Den. Beautiful fall foliage behind me. Peak colors here are Halloween, so we're just a little short of that. But exciting time here as deer season's approaching. Football season's in full swing. We are past the halfway point, and we are entering week 8, Dan.
Yes. Quick question. What's the weather like out there? Because it is here in Vegas, it's 55 degrees, Ray. It's pretty cold here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, the overnights are in the 30s here now, and they'll generally stay that way through the winter. They'll drop obviously in December and January, but the days now are still pushing the 70s. So beautiful, beautiful day here in Blacksburg.
Nice. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to kick off week 8 college football with one of the ACC number 6th ranked Miami going on the road to face Louisville. Here we have Miami, a 5-point road favorite, total 60.5. Ray, do you think the Cardinals can find some momentum going into this game?
Well, we're going to start this one real easy with the Miami-Louisville game. Big shout out to Blacksburg football legend Marquise the Hitman Jones, an offensive line brethren of mine. He's a little younger. He played about 2-3 decades after I did, but he's an outstanding ball player. We did get to link him up with Young Fox at the VT game. Marquise is we're trying to bring back the winning ways of when he was at Blacksburg. So very happy that he was able to attend with us on Thursday night. A great time was had by all. Thank you to the legendary Marquise Jones. Miami, Louisville. For you off-bye contenders, Miami is off the bye here. They got an extra week to prepare for the Louisville Cardinals. Last time here was 2020, Dan. Miami won the game 47-34 as a 2-point dog. Louisville has won 4 of the last 6 in this and are 4-2 against the spread in those contests. Last 3 meetings, Dan, for the total bettors out there, are all last 3 meetings all over the total, averaging 76 points per game. Louisville is 14-3 straight up at home in the last 2 years. Miami defense is giving up about 80 less yards per game than Louisville. This is a game I dipped into a little early in the week, Dan. I thought the 4 was a soft number. I have a feeling that a lot of people are labeling this a trap game, right? Like, it just doesn't add up. Why is Miami, who's just, rolling, they had a little blip at Cal, but, it appears to be a much stronger team in Miami. Louisville does get the home field here. This is not one of the, stellar home fields in college football. I didn't see what the line was, Dan, but I did grab a -4 early week, and I will be pulling for the Hurricanes.
Hell yeah. All right. Sounds good. The line is slowly, I think, coming back on Louisville here on DraftKings. I did see the number go from -110 to -108 on Miami. So money is coming in on Louisville, Ray, as we speak right now. So, but to that total point, Miami has 47.7 points per game, and Louisville has 36.2 points per game. Miami ranks first in scoring in the country, and Louisville ranks 22nd. So that's why we see a high total of 60.5 there. Going on to the next game, Ray, we have Nebraska and Indiana. Unranked Nebraska goes on the road to face number 16th ranked Indiana. Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite here, just under that touchdown, your key number of 7. Total 49 here. Do you think Dylan Raiola can go on the road and snag a victory here, Ray?
Well, this is kind of an interesting contest, I think, right? Because you have Raiola, who's a very exciting young player there at Nebraska. You have Indiana having one of its better campaigns thus far in quite some time. Have been a very popular team in the betting windows early in the season. Both teams here, Dan, are off a bye, so no bye biased, as they say. Both teams have had extra time to prepare here. Nebraska winning 6 of the last 7 versus Indiana. And it is the 4th meeting between these two teams as Big Ten foes. Last year, IU went 1-8 straight up in Big Ten play. So again, a massive turnaround for Indiana here as they're starting to get their wheels turning a little bit. 2 really good defenses here today, Dan, for that 49 total. Both defenses, Dan, allowing less than 283 yards per game. For those of you that follow the show regularly, you'll know that we often talk about, when you get to that, previous years, the Final Four, this year, when you get to your 12-team playoff, these teams that are giving up 380, 400 yards of offense, it's just oftentimes too much of an ask in a one-off situation where, you're basically in a single elimination scenario. We're 2 really good defenses here today. So, we're always looking for that under 300 key number, under 300 yards defensively. For me, that, you're making teams work quite a bit for their points in that scenario. No opinion for me on the game today, but should be a good one there from Indiana.
Yeah, to Ray's point there, you have yards per game allowed. This is just strictly just yards per game. You have Indiana coming in with 255.7, ranking 6th in the country. So again, and then you have Nebraska coming in at 272, which is 13th in the country. So again, 2 top 20 teams coming at it defensively, at least. So to Ray's point, we're going to see this game is going to be won in the trenches, ladies and gentlemen. So that's how you're going to win this game is blocking up front. Who can run the ball more effectively. And whoever I guess may have the ball last might win this game. Going on to the next one, Ray, we have Auburn isn't ranked. My bad. Auburn is going on the road to face ranked number 19th, Missouri. Auburn is a 3-point underdog. So Missouri is a 3-point favorite here. That field goal total 49.5. Is Missouri? We had a good game from Missouri last week, Ray. Do you think that carries over to this week?
We did. We grabbed the winner in the article last week with the Missouri Tigers at UMass. Me and Dan had an agreement going into that. We were never going to discuss Missouri again if they did not cover that number. They did, so we added them to the slate this week. So Missouri will continue to stay alive in our discussions as long as they stay alive, quite literally. This would be a case of losing this game today, I think, seals up Missouri's fate in the 12-team playoff, in my opinion. It's just that there's a lot of teams to overcome just in the SEC for Missouri, right? I mean, I understand that teams are going to play each other. Great game today with Georgia, Texas. These teams are going to accumulate some losses literally just by attrition. They play each other. But Missouri has so many teams to pass in the SEC to get into that 12-team playoff. In my opinion, a 2-loss Missouri team is a borderline team. A loss today would put them at that number and still leave them some tough contests remaining on their schedule, which was weak this year. But here we are back talking about Mizzou again because they did what they had to do last week. Hopefully that locker room, contention has quieted a little bit with a big performance from the Tigers last week at UMass. Hugh Freeze, 17-8, Dan, as an away dog. So a very comfortable role here for Hugh Freeze and his Auburn Tigers. To Marquise's question, War Eagle, Auburn -2.5. You got a good number, obviously, as Dan said, the 3 is out there. But this is a good spot for Freeze. He just, and you'll find this with a lot of coaches, right? What we're talking about is Georgia Tech's head coach. He's was undefeated at one point, 5 or 6-0 against ranked opponents, but his career record was 500. We talked about what does the AD do there? Does he say great, we're beating ranked teams, but we got to kind of beat those other teams as well. So a comfortable role for Freeze here. From 2021 to 2023, Auburn lost 8 straight SEC roadies, which is now up to 9, as they lost 1 already this year. So Mizzou 0-3 straight up versus Auburn in SEC meetings. As you know, Mizzou is one of the more recent additions, not in this most recent class, but the previous class. Mizzou and Texas A&M joined the SEC together. So 0-3 versus Auburn in SEC meetings. And Mizzou is playing very good defense. But again, folks, these numbers that you're seeing are a product of the schedule. Murray State was one of them. We saw UMass last week, a hapless UMass team, and they were coached really well, honestly, in that game. Pulled off some trickeration, kept the game alive for as long as they possibly could. Very good coach there at UMass, by the way, who's history with that program is very strong. But again, when you start seeing these teams like that, when you're playing the Murray States, the Ball States, the UMasses, we've seen in SEC contests this defense not as strong. And even against UMass, we could see some cracks in that defense, right? The defensive line maybe not playing up to par. They turned it on a little in the second half. But to me, this is a do or die for Mizzou. So they get the home field here. They get an Auburn team that's sort of mid-level SEC ball club. They have been competitive this year, Auburn has, and I look for them to be competitive again here at Mizzou. If Mizzou cranks it up and blows this team out, I'd certainly say a corner was turned last week. But I actually look for this to be a competitive game there at Missouri.
Yeah, Marquise grabbing the 2.5. I mean, look, Marquise, if you're getting good numbers, we can't fault you for that, right? The game's 3 right now in DraftKings. You get 2.5. That's a good number. And, over time, if you're continuously bet good numbers, you're going to come out on top. So Godspeed, Marquise. Hope Auburn comes in for you. Just want to thank all the listeners out there. Thank you so much, Uncle Dave, Mrs. Miller, Mr. Miller, all the Fox family listening. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us out. It helps you out. Please put that notifications on for when we go live. That's when you can listen to us. So make sure you hit that like and follow, subscribe button. We love it. You love us. Going on the next game here, Ray, to close out the 12 o'clock slate. We have East Carolina going on the road to face an Army. Army is a 17.5-point favorite here. Total 53. Do we see another a rout by Army, I would say?
Well, this is going to be, I love, I've already spoken to my love for these military academy games. Talking about real quick about Marquise getting that good number. For those of you who don't know, number one, Marquise is a subscriber to the Fox Den, but he also, as a bettor, he goes like 7-2 every, he'll make a 9-team parlay go 7-2. He'll make a 16 parlay go 5-1. I've literally never seen a parlay card from Marquise that is not like an 80% winner. So as a handicapper, he's actually like 80%. Like people would say that nobody's 80%. I would say nobody's 80%. He actually goes 80%. He's just a bundler. So I hope that you get that, Auburn. Marquise, I just don't know what it's all linked to. So it would not shock me if he grabs that W with that one.
I know
in
how
this
you
game,
feel.
ECU at Army, Black Knights, the Hudson. They are on the Hudson River there in upstate New York. This is a fantastically coached ECU team. I know the results haven't really spoken to his skill set. Mike Houston came over from JMU, a really, really quality football coach. Every year I sort of expect East Carolina to make a jump. They're just sort of hang around that 500 mark under Houston. I feel like, it's a tough spot to recruit, right? ECU. You're obviously out of the mix on any of the big guns. You're not going to get a guy. You're not going to have a guy choosing between Texas and ECU per se. So kind of getting those 2 and 3 stars and then developing them. That's what Mike Houston has always done. Huge fan of both coaches in this game. So I expect to see a really clean, well-played game here at Army. It's 2 really, really well-coached teams, coaches that I have a ton of respect for. Army, 0-6 straight up, 2-4 against the spread, lifetime against ECU. And this is, again, one of the better coached ECU teams you're going to see. Army is also, and this is kind of one that surprised me, but they're 4-3 against the spread versus teams off a bye since 2021. ECU 8-11 against the spread versus military schools since 1998. And Mike Houston, the ECU head coach we spoke of, 14-7 as an away dog. 6 of those 14 are outright upsets. Now, somebody's probably going to jump up and say, Ray, are you calling for ECU to win as a 17.5-point dog at Army? Probably not. But again, with the level of coaching in this game, I really don't, I think this is going to be one of the tougher covers for Army this year. Even though it's at home, even though they're rolling hot, this is going to be I think a tougher cover than the 17.5. Did not bet the game. I'm not at all going to get in the way of any of this Army-Navy role that they're on. I'm not going to be the guy to fade them at this point. There will be a time. I've already got to play in for Army-Navy, which is a standalone game in December. And I think Navy that played Air Force. Army still has to play Air Force, and that game is coming up in a few weeks for the Commander-in-Chief trophy. That trophy is going to come down to Army Navy in December.
That's
I look for this to be a really well played game on the Hudson today. I would give a lean to ECU with that number, but again, I'm not stepping in front of that train of that's the Army Black Knights right now.
Well, we were at 17.5 on DraftKings, now at 17. So the number is coming your way, Ray, as the East Carolina is getting some money here there. The last time both Army and Navy were ranked in the top 25, Ray, was back in 1960. So,
I wasn't alive, Dan. I wasn't even alive.
So that's October 3rd, 1960 was the last time that these two teams were ranked in the top 25 AP poll. So an unprecedented season continues, to say the least. Going on to the next game we have here at the 3:30 p.m. EST slate, we have Alabama going on the road to face Tennessee. This is quickly Alabama. Don't have it in front of me quickly, which is very shameful. Alabama, Ray. Don't know yet. What do you like about this team so far? Do you think the project is working out with the Kalen DeBoer as head coach? Do you think that transition is working out well?
Well, my first comments to a friend on this game early week, Alabama at Tennessee. The early line I saw was Alabama 2.5. I don't know what it's done. This is not a game that I invested in this week, but it could be argued that the wrong team was favored, right? I mean, this is probably one of the better Tennessee teams in recent memory. I would even say it's the best Tennessee team since Phil Fulmer was the head coach. Most of you may not even have been alive when Fulmer was the head coach. He finished off there around 2000, early 2000s, I think, because he won a Natty in '98. The year after Peyton Manning left, could not win an SEC title or a Natty with the great Peyton Manning at the helm at Tennessee. But the following year, they did get that done. In 1998, I was a resident of Tennessee that year. They've been asking me to move back since. But this is definitely a stout Tennessee team, and they found their way defensively. Even when they've had off years, they sort of always managed to get really good offensive recruits. They managed to score a lot of points, but they couldn't defend the field really well. This is the first decent Tennessee defense, the best version of this Tennessee product we've seen in some time. This is what we talked about preseason with Alabama, right? I mean, I love it, CJ. Bama blowout. Way to make your call. Way to call the ball, man. I love when people do that. Like, you feel a way, stand behind it, throw it in the comment section, and be like, CJ, I'm standing behind my Bama blowout call. I love it. This Alabama team, that's a big, big step. You go from Washington to Alabama. Let's not be confused. Kalen DeBoer is a ridiculously good football coach. Everywhere he's been, there is no hint that he's not who we think he is. But when you take an Alabama job, again, the ice is very thin that you skate on there. 9-3 is never acceptable after what Saban's done there. For Saban, those seasons wouldn't be acceptable after what greats before him like Bear Bryant had done. So it is a high-pressure job that DeBoer stepped into. And again, I'd rather be the guy following the guy that followed the legend than the guy that follows the legend. It's a very, very tough spot. When they talk about shoes to fill, I'm not sure there were ever bigger shoes to fill than Saban's in Alabama. This is the third Saturday in October, Dan, and that means Alabama and Tennessee will be locking horns. Last time here was 2022. That game was 52-49 Tennessee. The goalposts were thrown into the Tennessee River and fished out probably by the Coast Guard. Maybe Ryan was out there with the Coast Guard fishing them out. These two teams have played every year, Dan, since 1944. Alabama has won 16 of the last 17. 16 of the last 17. We like to call that a Saban stat. That's literally what he carved out there. That's the kind of shoes that DeBoer has to fill. I don't really understand that the number, it'd be easy to jump on Tennessee here, but again, you're jumping in front of an Alabama team, and that's not, you lose a lot of money. As you can see, they won 16 of the last 17 here. That's not something you want to step in front of lightly. I wouldn't argue with a Tennessee play here. Again, Alabama, what have they shown us recently to back CJ's Bama blowout call? I mean, they've had opportunities. I mean, you didn't blow out. I know Vandy's better than they've been in years past, but it's Vandy. It's Vandy. No, there's not a single recruit on Alabama that was offered anything by Vanderbilt because they know they can't even touch them. So what are we seeing from this Alabama team that suggests they can go on the road in one of the hostile environments in college football, Neyland Stadium, close to 110,000 deep on the river there, and pull off this win, which I would almost consider an upset win for Alabama. I mean, I know they were slight favorites early on. I don't know what the number does. This was a game I stepped away from early in the slate. But this game is must-watch TV at 3:30, Dan.
Yeah, just to correct myself, Alabama is a 3-point favorite here on DraftKings, total 57.5. So they think there's odds makers believe there's going to be a lot of points scored here. So I'm with you, Ray. I think Tennessee might, have a chance here. I think with a lot of the recency bias was under Nick Saban, and this is a different Alabama team. And look, that Vanderbilt game really disappointed me, in my opinion. It knocked my Alabama ratings down a couple notches. So for them to go on the road, I think it's a tough task for this Alabama team going on the road to face Tennessee. Next, on the 3:30 p.m. EST slate, we have Michigan going on the road to face Illinois. 24th ranked Michigan is a 5-point favorite on the road to face 22nd ranked Illinois. Total 44.5, Ray. We're going to see a lot of running in this game. So who do you like in this game?
Just to clean up that Alabama game too. I mean, let's just look at their last three. So they were pummeling Georgia at the half. That game was 41-34 final that took a late score from Alabama to win the game. They go at Vandy. They drop that game 35-40. Again, let's look at these numbers that this defense is yielding, folks. 34 to Georgia, which I think was all second half points. Then they give up 40 to Vanderbilt. And then they turn around and play South Carolina, and they were a 2-point conversion away from taking that game to overtime. So, again, I just don't know what I see in this Alabama team and let's call it their last 10 quarters that makes me think that they're going to go on the road and just turn Tennessee out. It may happen. Again, the ghost of Saban might be lurking somewhere in the shadows and pull off some more magic, but just wanted to clean that one up numbers-wise. I had to pull up in my book to get that.
Yeah,
Michigan, Illinois, Dan?
Yeah, no, that was a good point on the Alabama. I think that was good to reiterate that. Go for
Michigan,
it.
Illinois. Michigan is off the bye here, Dan. Michigan 23-2-1 in Champaign since 1959. 23-2-1 in this venue since 1959. Illinois has lost 6 straight in this series, but in those 6 losses, they are 4-2 against the spread. That's what we see in recent history. Again, those of you that follow the game know that Michigan very strong under Harbaugh in recent years, and they were laying some heavy lumber. I can look at it, but I guarantee every one of those spreads was double digits. And Illinois did manage to cover those 4 out of the 6 most recent contests. Both teams. This is really kind of wild, Dan. And I didn't think I'd ever say this about a Michigan team, but I looked at the numbers here. Both teams are being outgained by their opponents on the season. So, in other words, their offenses have scored less than their defenses have given up, have produced less yards than their defenses are letting up. Mm-hmm. So, teams are outgaining them in games. And again, but both teams are having fairly good seasons. You don't see that very often. Normally, if you're averaging 400 on offense, you're usually giving up 350. But very rarely do you see that flip flop for a winning team. Both of these teams fall under that category on the season. This game's being played in Memorial Stadium, 1923. It was constructed, holds 60,670 people, and it should be packed to the gills. I'm sure you will see some maize and blue in there to fill it out. Again, a game that I stayed away from just because these teams are kind of mercurial, right? We don't know when you're being outgained on the season, and you're still managing to win some football games. It's an odd game. I did not touch this game at all. Again, if you're an off-bye bias bettor, Michigan here is off the bye with a little extra time to prepare for Illinois in Champaign today, where they have had tremendous success since 1959 on a straight up 23-2-1 run. Dan?
Yeah. And if you're having trouble finding sides in this game, if you can find any player props on any of your books listed, I think maybe rushing props might be the way to go in this game for either Michigan and or Illinois. On to the next one we have, Ray, is unranked Charlotte on the road to face the Naval Academy, 25th ranked in the country. The Navy is 16.5-point favorites here, so close to the other military academy game. So 16.5 points we have as Navy is the favorite. 56 points is the total. 56.5 is the total here. What talk to me about this one, Ray? I don't think Charlotte comes anywhere close to this. I think Navy blows them out.
Well, I'm always partial, as everyone knows, these military academies. It's games that I grew up watching. I love the way they play ball. Did want to mention, Dan, the package is no longer available for $99.99. We're up to $199.99. That gets you the rest of the NCAA season, every bet that I make. What you want to do is join the Fox family for the holidays. You may be stuck with some family over. You're just trying to get away, get a bet in. We're going to keep you covered. Every play that I make through the end of the college season is $199.99 now. You can email me at greyfoxhunt@yahoo or DM me on Twitter at Ray Greyfox. We'll get you started immediately on that. We are also working on a bowl package that will be available come bowl season. So just wanted to get that in ahead of this Charlotte Navy game. For those of you who have not got to see this Charlotte football team yet, I will encourage you to watch it for one reason and one reason only. Biff Poggi, the head coach. I don't know if you've watched in weeks past, but his dress apparel is off the rack. I mean, last week this is a big man. Like, I'm going to guess he's 300 plus pounds, and he wears a shirt, and it is not like, how they used to, like Belichick used to cut stuff off and look cool, like he did it clean. He wore a shirt that was cut off at the sleeves, and again, this is a massive man. I mean, cut off at the sleeves, cut off around the neck, pouring sweat. I think he wore a hoodie to a game like 2 weeks ago when it was 100. It was completely soaked with sweat. He is entertaining, to say the least. This game at 3:30 is worth the tune in just for a Poggi exposure. Both teams here off a bye, and Charlotte is not a good team of late. Since 2019, Charlotte is 2-7 off their buys. So again, this is, I think, Poggi's second year here at Charlotte, so he certainly contributed to that off-by negative bias. However, again, he's a highly regarded coach. You may not like the way he looks or dresses, but he is highly regarded at Charlotte. And last year, one of the reasons may be that he covered 5 of 6 road games with 2 outright upsets. So last year, Biff Poggi covered 5 of 6 on the road, winning 2 of those outright. This today may be a bit of an ask. This Navy offense has just been absolutely producing. And they're not just doing it via the run. That's why I think this Army-Navy game is going to be so entertaining. We're used to seeing, like, in that game, if it stays close, you might see like 6 passes. And they're usually like trick plays. You may see Navy throw the ball now, and Army too, that both teams can pass the ball better than years past. So Navy was 8-4 to the under in 2023. I think this is a different version of Navy, as I mentioned. So although they trended heavily to the under last year, I think they've got all their pieces in place offensively. It's an offense that can throw the ball with confidence, not just when they need to. That used to be, if there was a formula for beating a military academy team, it was very, very simple. Get an early lead. Because if you get an early lead, they can't just hand the ball off. They're fighting the clock in that scenario. You force them to pass. They don't have, unfortunately, look, this is the deal at Army, Navy, Air Force. In the Air Force, you got to be able to fit into a fighter jet. How many offensive linemen can fit in the cockpit of a fighter jet? Not many.
Very little.
Navy, guys go on submarines. Again, the Navy basketball team, David Robinson being the one exception, right, where we saw a guy that could never fit into a submarine. But they have restrictions, right? Height, weight. Obviously, they have to maintain amazing physical conditioning. So, you have some prohibitions that you work with in these military academies. So to see them have the ability to throw the ball now, they're not just limited to having to have an early lead. Obviously, I think Navy wins this game, but I do know that Poggi is a very creative head coach, to say the least. So look for a big bag of tricks from Biff today in Annapolis. No play for me on the game, Dan, but you should watch it just to see Biff Poggi and find out what he wears today.
I was unaware of the style that Biff Poggi has been posing lately, so I'll be watching that game, Ray. I will be tuning in. Going on to the next game we have is 7 p.m. EST. This is an SEC battle. We have number 8 ranked LSU on the road facing Arkansas. We have Arkansas LSU, a 2.5 point favorite here, total 57.5. Ray, talk to me about this game.
It's an interesting game to me, right? Because LSU has to leave the place that it does the most damage. We were on them at home where they pulled off an outright win for us last week, I believe it was. Well, we've also won with Arkansas this year. This Arkansas team has been competitive somewhat. I mean, I see that there's 2 popular coaches that are listed as on the hot seat in the SEC, and Pittman from Arkansas would be one of those. Napier at Florida is the other, the most popular hot seat topics on your news feed. Not sure if either one of them is or isn't. It's this modern game and the way they handle coaching now. And, as I prepare my team log in the early season in July and August, it was amazing to me. I'm used to writing, head coach, 6th season, 7th season, 9th season, 15th season. It's amazing how many college coaches out of the 140 some that are in their first or second year. It seems as though the universities and their ADs are moving to the more current college format of transfer portal, right? Like it's almost like the coaches are now. It's like they're willing to part with coaches way faster than they used to be. And the thought of bringing in a coach now. So if you get a guy from JMU, say, and JMU's on back-to-back 12-0 seasons, playing great football, he transfers. He's going to bring guys with him that are winning players from his team. So it's almost like package deals now, right? So I find that kind of interesting. I'm not sure that Pittman's on the hot seat here, but hosting LSU in Arkansas today, a big one for him. I can assure you of that. Arkansas has gotten the bye week. They are off the bye to give them a little extra time to prepare for this LSU squad. LSU, another uncharacteristic thing. LSU defense giving up 387.4 yards per game. In my opinion, I just have like 2 words written next to that. For LSU, that is not right. That's not what they normally do. And again, clearly a team that, it's almost a standing joke among bettors. If LSU's at home at night, it's a blind bet. You don't even consider it. You don't even care who they're playing. They proved that in their last contest at home at night. Here, they're on the road, 7:00 start. And the LSU offense kind of doing what they normally do at 476 yards per game. But again, giving up close to 400 yards a game is not going to cut it. You're not going to play a ton of winning football giving up close to 400 a game. Arkansas actually has the better defense in this game, yardage wise, by about 30 yards per game. I would not have believed that going into the season at all. Arkansas sort of never known for their defense, more known for putting the points up. Last year's meeting was last 4 meetings here, Dan. Last 4 meetings have been decided by exactly 3 points. Oddly enough, the number is sitting right around that 3-point number. Exactly. And I mean, literally, the last 4 meetings were not like 2-4, 2-4. It was 3-3-3-3. So as an odds maker here, I got to bet the boys in Vegas. The Jeff Bensons of the world were just like, fuck, make it 3. Just make it 3. We'll be done with it. Arkansas 1-7 straight up, but 4-3-1 ATS of late against LSU, and 7 of the last 10 here, Dan, under the total. So again, it's a little shaky when you're taking defenses that give up 400 yards a game to go under the total. But the recent trend here, 7 out of the last 10 in the series have gone under the total. No play here for me here, but don't look for the same LSU that you see in Death Valley at night. I can tell you that they're just not the same.
Yeah, I've been watching this LSU team closely, Ray. I've had a couple bets on them this season, and like you said, it's they're disappointing to say the least. It's for them to be such a high-profile school, they're laying such a short price. You'd think, oh, it's an automatic bet. The team, like you said, defensively they struggle, and they struggled against UCLA. So come on, you can't really struggle against UCLA and people take you seriously. Let me just say that. All right, going on to the next game we have is probably the game of the week. It is the game of the week. Let me just, say that. We have number 5 ranked Georgia going on the road to face number 1 ranked Texas. This number was 5 last night, I can tell you, Ray. So money is coming in on Georgia. The number currently sits Texas -4.5, total 56. Do you think Georgia can pull off the quote unquote upset here, Ray?
I mean, honestly, as college football fans, when's the last time that sentence was literally uttered, Dan? Can we see Georgia? Okay, when was the last time it was uttered that wasn't versus Saban and Alabama? So a couple shout outs before we get into this game. McKinley, my buddy McKinley came by last night, helped me adjust a tree stand, folks. November 1st, muzzleloader opens here in Virginia. Instead of here, I'll be out there in the 20,000 acres out the back. We'll be chasing deer. Also want to give so thank you to McKinley. Thank you, brother. Want to also give a shout out for those of you that watched last night's Duke Florida State game. Listen, I understand you didn't see a game field stormer here. I actually was thinking for a minute that the Dukies would storm the field after this one. I'm like, they do realize they're 1-5, right? Like, this is not a field storming occasion. But I do want to give a shout out. Manny Diaz, first Duke win ever versus FSU. So you could have covered that with the Miami game, a former Miami guy. He's had a couple different roles with Miami. Looks like he's found a nice home there in Durham. I want to congratulate Manny Diaz, a great guy on a nice win last night, regardless of Florida State's record. Sometimes you just got to end the streak how you end the streak. So nice call, Marquise. Manny Diaz, great guy, by the way. Really, really quality individual that I've always rooted for. Great defensive mind as well. Georgia, Texas, game of the week, month, maybe even the year. Hell, who knows? I mean, this Texas team loaded for bear. We did cash on them against Oklahoma in relatively easy fashion. And I believe, folks, if that game would have been Manning starting, I feel like the score would have almost been double that. If you watched the game, Ewers was a little rusty early, had some guys wide open across the middle that he was way off target. I want to say he threw a pick on his first pass on an overthrow that there was a safety back there just sort of guarding grass, and he just scooped the low ball that was overthrown. I think that you would have seen a little bit more authority in that Texas win had Ewers not been coming off injury and a little rusty. So this is a very, very good Texas team. And again, this year, folks, Georgia and Alabama, they're riding on past history fumes right now. Their ratings, both of their ratings in my rating system are as low as they have been in, I would say, close to a decade. I mean, they're single digits in the positive ratings, which again, if you're ECU, that's a fantastic rating. But if you're Alabama or Georgia and you're not pushing up to closer to 20 in double digits, you're just not where you've been in years past. So do not confuse this Georgia team with past Georgia teams. We see that by the fact that, they're on the road in Austin, tough place to play, catching 4.5 here. Note for those of you that are into the wild stuff or the stranger things that can affect the outcome of a game. UGA 11 will not be making the trip, Dan. UGA will be remaining. No. UGA has a handler. Believe it or not, folks, this handler has 100% authority on what UGA does every day, all year. And if that handler says UGA ain't going, UGA ain't going. Doesn't matter what the AD says. Doesn't matter what Kirby Smart says. The same family, by the way, my wife used to have an UGA sibling, and the same family has raised the UGAs throughout the years. It's a very, very big thing in Georgia. Free UGA is right. Basically, what the handler of UGA said is he's young, he's immature, and quite frankly, he's crazy as hell. That was the direct quote. I thought it was like heat, maybe, because those dogs, if you ever notice at home in early season, they pack the ice bags into the doghouse. So I was like, it can't be heat there this time of year. I think it was maybe they're worried about a Bevo interaction where maybe UGA would start chasing Bevo around the field, So, but either way, UGA will remain in Athens. So if you're a spiritual bettor on mascots being there or not, UGA will not be in attendance.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking.
Texas has a 4-1 series edge here, Dan. Last meeting was the 2018 Sugar Bowl. Only the second time under Sark with Texas. First SEC meeting between these two teams as Texas is a new member of the SEC. Last game between the two in Austin, we like to refer to recent history. This would not be it. Last time the two met in Austin, 19-58, Dan. Texas was the winner, 13-8. And again, talking about, the last time Georgia was a road dog, we talked about it. If Georgia was a road dog in the last 5 to 10 years, it always involved the same guy. 2020 versus Alabama. So, I mean, this is a massive, massive ball game. Teams are really fearing it. It seems like now, so it used to be that the first loss for a team like Georgia. I mean, they lost one game last year. It was the SEC title, and they got kicked out of the playoff. But in years of a Final Four playoff system, it was always that first loss was deafening. Bobby Bowden used to have a saying, I'd rather lose week 1 because then I can put on a resume for 11 straight weeks and still get into the playoff. Anytime you lost late at this point in the season or beyond, you were pretty much done. Now that's become the 2-loss fear, right? So, nobody's wanting to get to 2 losses. Obviously, we know where Georgia stands on that. I'd love to be bold here and be like, listen, this is Georgia. It's Georgia getting points. It's an auto bet. It's not. It's just not. I mean, the ratings for Alabama and Georgia, like I said, are at much recent history. Like 5 to 10 year lows. Is this the kind of game that they can get well on? I guess. I mean, you got to beat one. If you go into Austin and beat this team, God forbid, beat them soundly. Some would say you're back on track, and I would imagine the rating would show that as well. So this was just, as a sports bettor, folks, be really careful. Don't just bet a game because it's the game of the month, week, year, whatever it may be. These are oftentimes the very, very most difficult games to find a competitive edge in, to find a line value edge in. These games are what bettors like myself refer to as hammered out. It's just the opener is going to get posted. They're going to make probably 1 or 2 moves from there, and then it's just going to sit generally for the rest of the week, and they're just going to let people bet into it big time. Pie Eater, good to see you, buddy. Marquise, CJ, Steph Kerr, always good to have everybody in the chat. But again, folks, just don't bet it because I'm going to watch this game, and I don't have a penny on it. But I just can't see Georgia. There's nothing that steers me to Georgia here. I would love to say it's an auto bet at plus points. It just isn't. I have Texas rated as the better team right now. I have the line where it should be. It's just don't bet it just to bet it. Okay. Try to find your advantage games. Generally, it's not going to be in your game of the week, month, of the year, because that's been hammered out a lot of time. And in a case like this game, I can promise you there was look ahead in the summer when they posted their look ahead games. This was a look ahead game. And if you bought Texas at the look ahead, I would be willing to bet that Texas was a dog in that look ahead in July and August before the games were played. I promise you Georgia was favored in this game. So if you did grab Texas at the look ahead in the summer, congratulations. You got a massively great number. And you could obviously play both sides of here and have a big middle if you wanted. But no play for me, Dan. Definitely game of the week, month, year. Excited to see it. I will be watching it. I just don't see that Georgia has the horses to keep up with this Texas team.
And, you say there's not a lot of betting edges here. I found one. I tweeted out just at Moneyline Miller. Uga will not be in attendance today. I'm on the road to face Texas. Take the Longhorns -1 million. That's my edge, Ray. So, all right, going on, the next game we have here is UCF on the road to face, this is a Big 12 matchup, by the way, on the road to face Iowa State. Iowa State is a 13-point favorite here, total 50. Do you think the UCF can hang around in this game? Because they have been, to say the least, pretty disappointing.
This is a funny team to me. I actually leaned I thought UCF and Utah, new additions to the conference, stepping up big time in conference. Generally, you'd lay against those teams because that's, when you're recruiting to play in a smaller conference, you advance with the players you have. Yes, in the portal era, you can get some new guys. You can get some more higher level talent, so to speak, to come and join you as a starter. I was high on this UCF team. They have just, of late, let's just look at the.
Oh, you still with us, Ray? Starlink must have. Oh, no. Ray, I think we lost you.
4. That's where we start to see that the things come undone. They get a bye week before facing Colorado. I liked them in that Colorado game, Dan. They were housed 48-21. They were outgained by 43 yards. and that was probably only due to garbage yardage at the end.
The connection seems to. You there, Ray? We're getting a little connection issues.
Absolutely plummeting, Dan. So Iowa State's made us some good money this year. I think the number's where it should be at. It's the first meeting between the two. UCF last year was 1-4 straight up in Big 12 road games. Since 2020, Iowa State 10-3 straight up, 8-5 against the spread in Big 12 homers. Until recently, 15-6 run in home games. Iowa State defense is allowing 283.8 yards per game. This game to me is an Iowa State or nothing play. Again, I mean, they've got a bye coming up after this game, UCF does, but they had a bye going into this last streak and they came out of it and went 0-3. So, I mean, are they going to turn the ship out of a really good Iowa State squad? I don't know, but again, that's why the number is 13 and not 3. So, numbers where it should be. I think Iowa State wins this football game. I think the number is really, really nicely priced. Stay away spot for me, but this is like UCF, watching UCF's season crumble in slow motion.
Yeah, I agree with you all there. We have Best Pie Eater chipping in with ASU moneyline plus 190. What do you think about that, Ray? Arizona State they're on the road to face Cincinnati. They are a 5.5-point underdog here. Do you like that moneyline play from Best Pie Eater?
I'll tell you what. Well, two things I know about Pie. He lives in the shadow of the damn stadium. So when it comes to ASU sports, you just say yes or do nothing. I mean, you never buck the guy. He lives in the shadow of the stadium. Number two, when he gives a hockey play, you bet it. You don't ask why, you just bet it. It's his time of year. I call him the ice melter in hockey. If he says ASU money line plus 190, I'd eat all you can get. He knows ASU football far better than I do. I'm not going to buck him in any way, shape, or form in his home state there. He's likely, I mean, he's in attendance at most of their home games, and he knows Arizona sports really well.
Yeah, Arizona State are now a plus 170 on DraftKings, so he's got the closing line value. Best Pie Eater, I hope you cash that ticket, brother. All right, going on to the next game, we have Kansas State on the road to face West Virginia. Kansas State is 17th ranked. They are also a 3-point favorite here. On the road to face West Virginia, total 56.5. Ray, do we think Kansas State continues to win? Because this is a tough place to play.
Well, we cashed against them last week at West Virginia. It is a tough place to play. Their fans come out and they come out full. Like when you talk about a sellout at West Virginia, the top corners of the stadium where you normally see vacant spots are not vacant at West Virginia ball games. When they sell out every seat. So a very big home field, as Dan mentioned. Want to clean up one thing from the ISU UCF game. The under is 15-6 run in home games at Iowa State. So when you're looking at that total, I think Dan said it was 50 there. That under is on a big recent run at Iowa State in home games. So getting on to Kansas State, West Virginia. Kansas State is a good ball club. 7-4 against the spread versus West Virginia as Big 12 foes. Kansas State has won and covered the last two in this matchup. And again, tough place to play. But, I mean, when we look quickly at this West Virginia, and I'll just go into my book for this one. Let's see here. Sorry, it's paper. I know it scares most of you kids. It's actually paper. I know it's nuts. It's got pen writing on it. One of these things is, I know it's crazy. These are quality pens, by the way, Dan. Last week we cashed with Iowa State at West Virginia. They played Kansas at home this year. That was a 4-point game. They were outgained by Kansas. They got beat by 34-12 by Penn State in Morgantown. And their best game at home this year, sadly, was against Albany, who they beat 49-14. One thing we're noticing here, they're getting outgained by better competition. Penn State outgained them by 211 in Morgantown. ISU last week outgained them by 40. And West Virginia was -2 in turnovers. So in looking at some of their tough loss, they lost at Pitt, West Virginia. They were -2 in turnovers there. They lost to Penn State, -2 in turnovers there. They had a nice win at Oak State, this West Virginia team. They were +2 in turnovers there, and they outgained – that was a blowout. They outgained Oak State by 331 yards. So they have shown flashes this year. But again, Morgantown not being as big a home field as years past. Both defenses allowing close to 400 yards here. So the 56.5 total. I mean, if we look at that, they've gone over that number once, twice, 3. So, they've gone over that number a number of times. And again, both defenses here are not exactly shutting anything down, allowing near 400 yards per game. No play for me here, but wouldn't be afraid of the Kansas State backers. Just don't really know where West Virginia is at. Their rating is sort of steadying out about where I expected them to be in a +1 to +5 area. So we'll see. I think a lot of things can turn for this West Virginia team. They do have a decent little stretch of schedule ahead of them here with a bye week coming November 2nd, Dan.
Yeah, all good points there, Ray. Going to the next game we have here is Kentucky on the road to face Florida. Kentucky is a 1.5-point favorite here, now at 2 at DraftKings, actually. 2-point favorites on DraftKings on the road. Total 41.5. What do you like on this game, Ray?
I love most of all about this game is Steve Spurrier just totally dragging Kentucky through the mud this week just because he can. Like, it's Spurrier. It's the old ball coach. Anytime he opens his mouth, it's like the greatest quote session ever. I mean, there's one out there on YouTube you can grab, but he's like, hell, we can't block, we can't pass, we can't tackle, we can't even kick. I don't even know if we have a team left. I think they won that week 55-0. But DJ Lagway, I believe, is the starter here. Mertz, the starting quarterback up till this point, he suffered a concussion. Lagway started against a 1AA team and blew him out at Florida earlier in the year. That was his only true start of the season. They were alternating series, I think every third series, something along those lines. But Mertz now done for the year. He said his goodbyes on X to his family and faithful. DJ Lagway, the highly regarded freshman, will get the start for Florida in the Swamp today. Very, very tough place to play, Dan. Great home field advantage. Florida, 33-1 between 1987 and 2000. I would say Spurrier has a right to drag him. I think they ended that streak with beating Spurrier. That might have been what forced him into leaving Florida. It was probably broke him up so bad he had to leave. Florida has lost, however, the last 3 in this rivalry. And Florida is on an 0-6-1 against the spread run versus Kentucky. Kentucky 2-20 straight up in the Swamp. So again, very, very big home field. I'm wondering in this game, is the crowd a little bit excited to see Lagway and know that he's the guy going forward? I think Mertz is a good quarterback. I think Lagway's ceiling is way, way higher. Of course, his floor is probably a lot lower than Mertz due to his age, but I think there's going to be some excitement in the Swamp today to see Lagway get his first true start and be the guy moving forward for the Gators. Again, the Florida, the biggest defense issue we see for them, they are giving up 416.4 yards per game this year. The Kentucky defense, they're only allowing 251.8 yards per game. And I don't think we need to document who they've done that against. It's pretty clear they did that against Florida, Georgia, and Ole Miss, two of the better teams, we like to think, offensively, certainly. So that is a true 251.8. Kentucky plays great defense. It's going to be exciting to see Lagway get his first start against this really good Kentucky defense. He does get the home field, so noise and that should be sort of in his favor. It should be a pretty good football game down there in Florida today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be really a challenging game, and both teams are coming in at 3-3, and who's going to leave the game with a positive record. Going on to the next game, Ray, we have a couple minutes left here. We have 21st ranked SMU on the road as a 17-point favorite facing the Trees in Stanford. Total here is 53.5. Do you think SMU can cover this big spread here, Ray?
And I tell you, we talk about mascots. There was a controversial mascot at one point, the Tree. I think he was ejected from a contest, if I'm not mistaken. SMU here off a bye, Dan.
Ejected.
I think he did. I'm pretty sure he was ejected. I can't remember what he did, but he did something that was not approved by the officials and was ejected from the game. SM, you can Google that. Somebody Google that. It's out there in the internet world. The Stanford Tree being ejected from a football game. That is a real thing. SMU off the bye here. First meeting since 1936. Welcome to conference realignment. Stanford won that 1936 contest for those historians out there. 7-0 in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. SMU 5-2 as an away favorite under current coach Lashley. SMU's first road game in California since 2004. Stanford 10-23 against the spread at home since 2018. Again, folks, Stanford 10-23 against the number at home since 2018. The under went 5-2 last year at home, 2-1 this year. So
Take of the trees. Keep losing them. Almost, Bray. We're almost there.
Stanford with that 10-23 against the spread number at home certainly is not any home field advantage that I would worry about, Dan.
Yeah, all good points there, Ray. Let's get this last game in here quickly. We have UNLV facing Oregon State. UNLV on the road to face Oregon State. UNLV is a 6.5-point favorite here. Total 59.5. Do you think UNLV could continue this very surprising run that they're on?
Well, this is another one that I bet, Dan. And again, we covered a couple games that I bet on the card today. I bet a total of, I think, 5 or 6 games this week. Again, you want to get the whole card for the rest of the season. That's $199.99. Contact me. Join the Fox family. UNLV at Oregon State, Dan. I sided with the home team here in Corvallis. I did grab a nice number here. I grabbed Oregon State. Actually, I grabbed them getting 7.5 at one point. That number has come down. It actually dropped at some point this week. I want to say to 5.5. I think it's back to 6.5 now. But the sevens, I think, are gone there. Sort of a game that opened about where it closed, if I'm not mistaken, right around 6.5. UNL has a UNLV 3-2 series lead here. The last time here was 0-2, so no recency there. UNLV 6-0 against the spread run last year on the road. Oregon State defense is allowing 381 yards per game. Their offense is tallying 426.8. The UNLV defense, again, 404.2 yards they're giving up, and they're only producing 385. So again, folks, always be a little suspicious. If you look at this Oregon State team, they're producing more than they're giving up. UNLV is actually the opposite. They're producing less than what their defense is giving up. This is a tough place to play. For those of you unfamiliar with this venue, Oregon State in Corvallis, very tough place to play. In this game, really, this was sort of a ratings deal for me. And again, what I track at this point is how I track the rating every week, starting at about week 4, once we get out of the 1AA games. So if I see a team go from +10 to +7 to +4 to +2, you don't have to be a genius to see that team is trending the wrong way. Again, if they play the top 5 teams in the country, that's not a terrible trend, but they're still trending the wrong way. And conversely, if you see a team at a 0 or negative rating, now starting to push up in positive rating, that team is obviously trending the right way. This was a case of 2 teams going in opposite direction in my ratings. I'm sure in the public eye, that's not the case. The public is very, very high on this UNLV team. Their quarterback bailed before so he could still get a red shirt. They brought in the current quarterback. I want to say his name's Hodge. Something he has a difficult name to pronounce, but he did come over from the Campbell Camels, where he spent his college career prior to UNLV. He was obviously going to ride the bench all year long and only come in, and I think it's Hodge Williams, only come in a backup role. But he's come in and he's done well, quite well for UNLV. So this is a team that's sort of been doing, rolling pretty well of late. And I just wanted to pull up their team before we get team page.
Hodge Malik Williams.
Hodge Malik Williams. Thank you. That is perfectly done. UNLV. So that was, I guess, going into the Fresno game. Williams came in. They won 59-14 hosting Fresno. That's when their quarterback left. They lost to Syracuse 44-41 in overtime. We had Syracuse there plus the points and money line. So we cashed against them there. Utah State. They played Utah State last year. It's a bad Utah State team this year. They beat them 50-34. They were minus 38 yards and +4 in turnovers there. So again, whenever you see a team against Fresno, they won 59-15. They were +4 in turnovers. They played Utah State, won 50-34. They were +4 in turnovers. If Oregon State doesn't turn the ball over today, Dan, at home in Corvallis, it wouldn't shock me at all if they pull off the outright upset. Very, very difficult place to play there in Corvallis. And again, what we're seeing is their rating is just slowly dropping, and they've won 2 of their last 3 and went to overtime in the other one. But again, those games against Fresno, Syracuse, and Utah State. This Oregon State team, although, certainly would fall into that group of ratings-wise, I just like Oregon State here. I took a good number. I got them at 7. I brought them up to 7.5 at one point. I was good with them at 6.5, and that's about where I think it's sitting now. So I would still recommend a play on Oregon State at home against UNLV. Again, that's like a six play card for me today. The 2 that we did on the show would be Oregon State, and I did take Miami laying 4 early this week against Louisville in Louisville. So that's the 2 games that I played. You can go on to Nuke the House, go to nukethehouse.com, go to NCAA football, select articles. You'll see one that I wrote on a game being played today that we did not cover in today's slate. You can pick up a nice read there, so you can actually get 3 bets out of me this week just through the Nuke the House people who are on fire. Everything that Nuke the House is doing. If you're betting any sport at all, folks, Nuke the House is your one-stop shop. Get after it. Dan, what do you got for today?
Well, we're one of the best bettors in the world, so that's why we have nukethehouse.com. That's why we have you, Ray, on board. So again, thank you to all listening and watching. Nukethehouse.com offers every bettor, your cup of tea. So whatever you bet, Nuke the House has you covered. So again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. We'll be back next week. I don't have any best bets this week, Ray. I'm going to lay off this week, I think. Coming last week, I had the total in the BYU game. I said under. That went over in like the third quarter. So I'm going to stay away from college football totals for now. But thank you all for listening again. We'll be back next week and cash some tickets. Have a good week, ladies and gentlemen.